G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back again for another footy tipping video, and we are going to be doing my AFL tips for round 9 of the 2023 AFL season. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That will be much appreciated. And let's kick it off with my tips from last week. So I think in general it was another high scoring round for a lot of people. It was for me in the end, picking up a 8 out of 9. So another high score for me now, starting to really build consistently with some high tipping scores. Tipped the Lions away, thought they'd just be the better team on paper and they would get it done on the road, and they sure did that by 26 points. Tipped the Tigers at home, thought they were easily the better team, even though the Eagles really gave them the test up till halftime. The Tigers just flexed their muscles and finally hit the scoreboard. Tipped the Cats at home, safe one. They got it done. Then tipped the D's. Now, I did say this game would be close. I felt like Gold Coast could really bring it up to them, and they sure did. This game was really in the balance in the final term. Then, yeah, a bit of a drama in the end, and the D's holding on by 5 points. Tipped the Bulldogs, just thought the better side. Safe tip. There was a lot of safe tips, and a lot of them did pay off, but this wasn't a safe tip at all. Going with the Hawks. Yeah, I tipped the Hawks and they're going to lose by over 10 goals. So pretend you didn't say that. But yeah, Frey just way too good. They looked really good on Saturday night. Their ball movement supreme. Then the Sunday games, tipped Port Adelaide over the Dons. I felt like Essendon, yeah, I did say in my tipping video, I reckon Essendon will really bring it up to them, take it to the sword, and they really could have won that. Bit of drama in the end, but Port just hold on by another 5-point margin. Went safe for the Pies at home. Though they're just firing at the MCG at the moment. They're very hard to knock off there. And they got it done by 29 points. I tipped them by 28, so very close there. And the final game, bit of a snore fest in the end. But yeah, the Saints, another easy tip against North Melbourne. So yeah, pretty easy round, I guess you could say, with tipping. Probably should have been a 9 out of 9 if I didn't be stupid with that Hawthorn tip. But hey, you do upset tips sometimes. Let's see if we can improve this week heading into round 9. So the first game of round 9 kicks us off with 2 Friday games. Actually, the first one we've got is the main one here, the Tigers versus the Geelong Cats at the MCG, 7:20 PM. So there certainly will be a little bit of feistiness heading into this matchup here. But the Tigers, look, a pretty job done sort of win against West Coast last week. I still felt their first half was pretty concerning, really being unable to get the ball in their forward half much. Execution was again poor, but you know, the West Coast Eagles, they're just a side you can't trust for a full 4-quarter performance. They just ran over the top of them, kicking goal after goal. And look, against the Cats now, they're really starting to ripen up in a good spot heading into the midway point of this season. Picking up wins now, picking them up comfortably. Just they're one of those sides, the Cats, where just every single player in the team, it plays their part. That's why they're such a hard team to beat. The big out for the Cats, though, is Dangerfield with his hamstring injury. Won't be out for too long, but a few weeks, and he's a massive out for the Cats because he's just been their big clearance leader that's able to really burst out of the stoppages. So, bit of a big loss there. I think Tanner Bruin will try and take a step into that midfield now. I just feel Richmond are due for one of those games where they can really knock off a good quality opponent. I just think the past weeks, they don't think necessarily they have been putrid, but they've just shown upside with their ability to at least have repeated entries, hit the scoreboard, but just not efficiently. So I feel like this is a game where they can finally start to play some good footy against a good quality opponent. At the G as well, a bit of a home ground going their way, so if they can get the faithful round and really rally them up, I think they're a genuine chance to win this game. Just a bit of a one where you don't really necessarily look at the form, you just look at, you know, sort of the upside of, you know, their sort of style, and you feel like maybe this is the game it does get clicking. But look, against Geelong, they're really starting to really tighten up so far this year. They've been strong in defence everywhere around the ground. Every player's been doing their job. That's sort of been their philosophy, just with all those role players. And a really gritty win against the Adelaide Crows, who are hard to beat at home. I think gives them good preparation to this pretty heavily contested game. I do think this one will probably go a bit of a high-scoring end-to-end sort of game. I think Richmond will really turn up with their scoring for this one. But for me, I think the Cats will get the better of Richmond here. Really expect Richmond to turn it up for this game. I like them, but I'll go safe for the Cats. And they'll pick up the win on the first Friday night game and win by 17 points. So a double-header Friday night game. The next one here, we've got the West Coast Eagles taking on the Gold Coast Suns at Optus Stadium. Gold Coast, I think the past few weeks have been playing a really good, respectable brand of footy. They just haven't been able to pick up a few of those wins. And look, it's very hard to knock off the Demons. Let's just I just look at that as a genuine fact. So really, I know they are disappointed, but I think a lot of fans and of course 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 will be proud of their efforts. Whilst with the Eagles, can't really expect them to knock off the Tigers for a full 4 quarters down over there at the MCG across the other side of the country. They are still one of the bottom teams, but I thought a few of their players are really impressing me. You know, Oscar Allen's been fantastic so far this year. I think he's kicked at least 2 goals every game so far this year. So he's a genuine chance to really go big in this game, maybe get a bag of 4 or 5 goals. I think the Suns will definitely head into this game thinking it is a bit of a danger game as well, because West Coast over there in Western Australia and the Suns have always been a little bit iffy interstate. You can't just really back them in straight away, the Suns. You've got to have those thoughts of, I think the Eagles could be a genuine decent chance here. But for me, the Suns brand at the moment's been really good. They've been a strong clearance and contested heavy side, whilst that's been probably the Eagles' biggest weak point. And I think their ball movement has really improved as of late, like in their transition plays. And they've been really good with their inside 50 use. You know, Ben King's really been lifting. Noah Anderson's on absolute fire. Fiorini in there had a good game last week. I just think the Suns, better team on paper, they'll get the job done here over the Eagles and get a win in the West, and they'll win by a nice comfortable margin of 30 points. Saturday games now. First one, we've got the Sydney Swans taking on the Freo Dockers at the SCG. Swans, I think, another disappointing loss, of course. That's now 3 losses in a row they've had. I think the last 6 games they've lost 5, I'm pretty sure. So it's quite concerning, the situation they are in, the Swans. The last 2 weeks the Swans have played, even though there have been losses, and I think throughout stages, especially late stages of games, they've been terribly poor. Structure's just fallen out the window. I think there's something mentally wrong with the side as well, missing a lot of set shots and just not really closing out games well. So that's sort of their weakness here. But on the flip side, I feel their intent and their effort and pressure has been quite good. They've just been unable to really execute. They've been, hard at it. I thought they were quite good throughout stages against the Pies there, and that's probably the toughest place and venue and team to play in the AFL at the moment, and they're only going down by around 5 goals, so people thought it was more. I feel like that gives them a bit of a hard edge heading into this week against Fremantle, looking for a big win. But the Dockers, they'll definitely be licking their lips at this matchup. The Swans are not playing well at the SCG, and also a big win against Hawthorn. That really does give them strong chances here to try and cause the upset here, because I thought their last week, their ball movement was really fantastic. You could see the starting to play a bit more of the corridor, daring use, and if they can sort of match that with Sydney, who also play that same type, I think they're a genuine chance here. There's a few red flags was going with the Dockers though. The last time a WA team beat the Swans was, I think, 2011. Swans are usually very good against the WA teams at home, and just, looking at those past records, I just feel the Swans head into this game with a bit of anger and a bit of fire in their bellies. The last 2 weeks, I feel like their pressure, their intent, their efforts been really good. I reckon they'll actually play some quite dominant football here against the Dockers. Might be a little bit biased coming from a Swans fan, but there's definitely a lot of pessimism coming with the Swans at the moment. But I just feel like this is a game where they really do turn up. They hit the scoreboard, but I'm not disrespecting Freo with this tip at all. I think they'll really come to play. Their midfield is strong as of late. Nut Fife being thrown in the midfield too. Will he start in there? Maybe. He's a bit of an impact sub. Who knows? But if they really can turn it up with their ball movement like last week, the Dockers, I think they're a good chance to win. Otherwise, I just feel the Swans will easily cruise home to victory. So that's probably the biggest and most important thing for the Dockers if they want to get up. But for me, the Swans, I just think they get it done at home. They bounce back. They get a big win here against the Dockers by 26 points. Now for North Melbourne, taking on Port Adelaide at Blundstone Arena. This game, the Jason Horne-Francis Cup, it's going to be a big one. Thankfully, this game isn't at Marvel Stadium because, geez, Horne-Francis and his team would be under probably a lot more bigger of a hostile environment. So a little bit less attendance, but there still will be quite a bit of buzz. And yeah, the booing and all that saga, we'll just let that play it out. But this game heading into it, look, I thought North Melbourne last week against the Saints were pretty competitive. Both teams were horrifically inaccurate. So there's really 2 ways to think about it. I thought the Saints should have won by more, but they kept the door open. North really did have an opportunity to come back through that third team through Nick Larkey. He kicked 3 third-team quarter goals, but it wasn't enough. And look, versing Port Adelaide now, they're a side that's truly really going under the radar now. Their defence as of late has been quite strong. Thought their, ball movement was pretty mediocre against Essendon. There was a lot of bombs down the line, inside 50. Thought that's probably why their goal kicking was pretty horrific on the weekend. But look, it just everywhere, their contested game as of late has been pretty good. They're just one of those sides, Port Adelaide, they haven't been the most flashiest, but they're just getting enough output from every single player out on the park. And that's just how they're constructing wins at the moment. But you never know with this game, considering it does have the Jason Horne-Francis tag attached to it. But for me, Port Adelaide, better team on paper. I think they just get this done. Even past the heckling and the booing with Horne-Francis. I feel like he could have a big game here. Maybe that's a big call. Horne-Francis best on ground, but Port Adelaide, they're flying at the moment. They should get the job done here over North Melbourne by a convincing margin. We'll go Port Adelaide by 41 points. Next game up here, the Hawks taking on the Demons at the MCG, 4:35 PM. The Hawks, very hot and cold team in terms of how they do play week to week. One week, they're pretty respectable. They keep within, a reasonable margin against some good teams for maybe 3 quarters, and they lose by, let's say, maybe 5 goals. And then they have other games where they play like a VFL side. Like last week against Fremantle, the defence was a mess. They could not defend any sorts of inside 50s and transitions, and sometimes their forward line as well. They just really struggle with efficiency in their forward half. But maybe this is the week where the Hawks do turn things around and show a bit more of a gallant display against the Demons, but it is a pretty straightforward tip. Melbourne, I can't see them at all losing the Hawks. Working extremely well across all areas of the ground. Look, their win last week was not very convincing, but hey, this happens to every kind of team in the competition. Teams do play not so great footy, but no matter how you do pick up a win, a win's a win. And they head to the MCG, back to their playpen. They've been playing some awesome footy at the G. So far this year, they should pick up a big win against the Hawks. Another one maybe similar to North Melbourne. Get a big win, I reckon. We'll go Melbourne. Not by a huge margin. I think the Hawks will play a bit more respectable footy, but still the Demons should pick up a big win and win by 50 points. Next game up we've got here is the Lions taking on the Dons at the Gabba. Now, instantly, I probably should just tip the Lions here and move on, but look, I feel like as of late, the Dons have been very good against some tough opponents. They've been very close against a few sides, obviously knocking off the Demons, very close against Port Adelaide, pretty close against Collingwood, of course. Managed to hit the ton against Geelong. I think they've just been playing really good patches of footy, and look, I thought their ball movement as of late and their defensive structure has been really good, and they've been a really hard-edged team. I feel like they've had that sort of bees around the honeypot sort of strategy. When there's a see ball, get ball situation, you get numbers around the footy. That's where they've been really good, and they've just forced turnovers really well. And against the Lions, maybe smaller ground, it could suit the Dons as well. They, in fact, beat the Lions at this venue last year in a huge upset. But the Lions, I just feel this year at the Gabba, this is going to be their huge fortress. I feel like from last week, that win they did bank interstate, that gives them plenty of confidence. The forward half of the Lions is probably the best attack in the competition at the moment, I'd say. Very good team off the turnover as well, and just a better team on paper, and the home field advantage as well. I'm probably just going to have to keep on tipping the Lions until they do lose there. So for me, the Lions at home, stick with it safe, even though I think the Bombers will come to play, and I think this will actually be a close game, but the Lions do flex their muscles in the end. So we'll go the Lions to pick up the win, and they'll get it done by 13 points. And for the other Saturday night game, probably a bit of a 50-50 one. On paper, that is, the Blues versus the Bulldogs. Now, the Blues, they've been terribly out of form. They've been playing some genuine average football, but you still look at the players they have on the list and you feel like, when is the week going to occur when they just go bang? Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay go big. Silvani and Durden and Fisher, if he does come back into the side, get on the end of a few goals, and Cripps and maybe Kennedy, he should be back in the side as well. Get on the end of some very good games. Cherry's been in some magnificent form too. They've had a few individual inconsistencies. Some players have been playing good. Other players, especially role players, have not been meeting their demands and playing some quite ordinary footy and very boring and inconsistent sort of ball use. They try and play fast. They turn the ball over. They try and play it slow. They're just too slow. Whilst the Bulldogs, they are a team, again, another one of those under-the-radar sides. The last 5 games are 1-4. They've been... Look, I think their issues have still been conceding a surge amount of possessions and goals. They've done it a few times with their past few opponents, but I just think with Carlton being out of form, this sort of gives me confidence on hopping on the Bulldogs here, but you can't look at past form too much because that's just how AFL works. Each week is different, and for me, I can really see Carlton turn up to this game and go big and win by maybe 20 plus. But the Bulldogs forward half as of late has been working really well. Loving 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 so far this year. He's been going under the radar. Norton as well is really starting to string together some good games. Artie Jones was fantastic last week. Can he continue on his form? And of course, Bunt has been fantastic too. So yeah, look, 50-50 game on paper, I reckon. I think the Blues will lift. But for me, the Bulldogs, I do like here. They are in some good form, and I'll back in their form to pick up this win on Saturday night in a close game of footy. I think this one will be close. Bulldogs will win by 14 points. And for the 2 Sunday games here, first one, another intriguing matchup. Really like the look of this one. The Crows take on the Saints at Adelaide Oval. St Kilda still are the #1 defence in the competition, but their past 2 weeks have, not been, I don't think, their greatest sort of form of footy. The loss to Port Adelaide, where Port Adelaide did go to homework on them, and look, they probably should have won by more in the end against North Melbourne, but look, heading now into a game versus Adelaide, they can't be wasting their chances. Even though Adelaide have been inconsistent with their chances, this is a really exciting matchup with strength to strength, sort of. Adelaide's forward half per inside 50s and the ability to score per inside 50s are magnificent, while St Kilda number one in defence. So it's a really good, intriguing matchup at one end of the ground. Both teams really good with pressure as well. Both teams pretty good in the contest. Both teams' pressure is very good too. So I like St Kilda here. Maybe they can get on the end on some good scoring, and I think they will bounce back with some more accurate kicking. But I'm liking the Crows at home. They've been quite unfortunate their past 2 weeks. They've played some really hard opposition, so you feel like now that's just given them a bit of anger to really turn it up and play some good footy here. Maybe something similar to like the Blues last on Friday night a few weeks ago. They just go bang, 50-point quarter. I feel like they could put on a big score here. It's hard though against St Kilda's really well structured defence, so I think this could be a bit of a low scoring affair really. And probably a game where it is one in the middle and whoever can be probably the best ball using side with transition. So yeah, I might stick with the Crows though at home. Bit of a home field advantage tip, I do feel. And look, I think St Kilda can really win this game, but I'm just loving the way the Crows are going out at the moment. Their pressure's been magnificent. You really have to grind down Adelaide to really knock them off, and they're plucky at the moment. They do not go away, and I guess you can say the same with the Saints, but forward half is really damaging, and their ball movement has been great too. So I'll stick with the Crows at home. They'll get it done on Sunday and pick up a low-scoring game. I think it'll be by, I think it'll be close, 11 points. And the final game of the round, we've got the Pies taking on the Giants at the MCG. The Pies, probably the top team in the competition at the moment, even though their stats haven't necessarily been the most dominating. I guess you could say their forward line stats have been probably around the AFL average. They're one of the most adaptive teams in the competition. If a team is really turning up and playing well, like the Swans sort of were playing that chip mark system last week, what the Pies did from that second half onwards is they just allowed the Swans to do that, but they really tightened up in their back half. They allowed no scores from stoppages, and they really affected them when the Swans went, when they did go forward as centre. So that's just the thing with the Pies. Might not be the sexiest sort of team with the numbers they're producing, but they're such a tight-knit group and probably the most balanced team. Same with Geelong in the competition, every player playing their part. And the Giants, look, they're heavy outsiders, but you have to remember the Giants play good footy against the Pies. It's a bit of a bogey team for Collingwood, so look, I feel like Giants can really give it up to them. They've been very, very under the radar as well. The Giants are playing some very respectable footy. They're playing some tough as nails. They've been playing good footy against good opponents, but they just have those surges where they just lack execution. They cause a lot of turnovers, and their defence can fall asleep for a goal or two. But they're a bottom side, probably heading into this year. The Giants are a mid-table side. We expect that. The Pies are flying, especially the MCG. They get this done on Sunday afternoon, I reckon. But I feel like the Giants will give it up to them maybe for a quarter or two. But Collingwood, they're such a fit team as well at the moment. Their fourth terms and second halves have been brilliant. They'll run at the Giants here. Even though the Giants have been a really fit team too, I just think the skills-wise, they'll get the job done. So yeah, Collingwood will win, and they'll stay on top of the ladder at the end of round 9, I do believe, and they'll pick it up and win by 20 points. So overall, there were my tips for round 9 of the 2023 AFL season. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to enjoy. And until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.